Greetings and welcome to the Power Gamer Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Dawson, joined as always by fellow host Johnny Paulus. Johnny, we're kicking it old school, man.
Yeah,
It's
man.
just the two of us.
The dynamic duo.
Hath returneth.
Yes.
Unfortunately,
Yes.
Spock has Kim in a Vulcan death grip and is um, stabbing her in the shoulder, and it hurts real bad. So that is obviously causing a bunch of discomfort, and we wish her well. She'll be
Get
back.
well soon, Kim.
But the show continues with your boys,
Yep.
Mike Dawson, Johnny Paulus. Johnny, welcome in. How are you doing this week, sir?
I'm doing good. I got my tickets for Dune 2 tomorrow morning at 10:50 a.m. I will finally be in the theater to see Dune 2. I've been like this with spoilers for 2 weeks. Just please no one spoil this movie for me. And last week we were just so busy with my birthday stuff with Liam, because his birthday was late February, but all of his friends were out of town for the next fucking 2 weeks. So it was we literally booked the birthday party and then one person confirmed. And I was like, cancel it. We're not going to have one kid show up to his birthday party. It's like the saddest thing ever. So we booked it all for last week. And then when it was done, I was like, Dune 2? Can we go see Dune 2? Dune 2? And everybody's like, I'm tired. I don't feel like it. I was like, y'all, you're going to make me wait 3 fucking weeks to see the biggest sci-fi release of the last 5 years. You're killing me.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat right now. Doesn't feel good. I tried to go last week and I got shot down. I'm getting to the point, Johnny. I'm just gonna go.
I that's what I just did. It was 2 days ago. I was like, all right, let's look at times. Looked up Saturday. I was like, fuck it, 10:50. You still get the matinee price. And I was like, damn, they got the best seats in the theater are still available, because it was 3 days ago. I texted Megan. I was like, I'm just doing this. I'm buying tickets. That's just what we're going, because I'm tired of fucking waiting. I can't take it anymore.
That's driving me crazy. I love Dune.
Same. I mean, I went back and rewatched the first movie twice in the last 2 weeks. So I am fully caught up and pumped up and ready to rock. Can't wait.
Man, I've been living that musical life.
Yeah, you have.
That's what interrupted our steady schedule.
Yep.
Last week, and because last week I had rehearsals starting Saturday every single day for 4 hours, followed by 3 nights of the show before I finally got a day off on the following Monday.
God, that's brutal.
And then I actually just got done playing the show again tonight. I do it tomorrow. I do it Sunday, and then the musical season is over. It's unfortunately greatly impact how much time I've had to play games. The answer is not much.
It's okay. I've been busy. You can see I have quite a list of games. I've been rocking out some shit.
Yeah, even over the 2-week period of time, the answer is not much. We'll just get into it. So I'm still playing Alan Wake 2 because my life has basically been on pause.
Mm-hmm.
And I still haven't been able. I bought it pre-release Pacific Drive, and it has just been sitting installed on my computer.
And I know you were so pumped for that one too.
I'm still so pumped on it, but it's just longing for me to jump into it. So I mean, this last week, dude, I didn't even touch Helldivers. I just played Alan Wake 2 when I had time, and sprinkle in a dash of Marvel Snap. And that's been all I've had time for. So I don't want to talk about Alan Wake 2 really until I've beaten it.
Okay, fair.
Anymore. I feel like I've said enough. For someone that's just working through the game. So yeah, Johnny, I'm going to kick it over to you. What have you been playing of late, sir?
Well, let's see. So our last episode, I had mentioned that I'd started Assassin's Creed and kind of gotten to the intro screen was kind of where I'm at. I am now on my final assassination target, I will be rolling credits on this game within the next day or two. I'm very, very close to beating it. And I'm happy to report this game feels like Assassin's Creed 3. Like it is very old school Assassin's Creed. If your favorite version of Assassin's Creed is throwing a smoke bomb over here so that you can hide in it and stab that guy, and then throw a noisemaker over that way to distract the guys and get them to come over, and then take that guy out with a throwing knife and put that guy to sleep with a sleeping dart, and then you've wiped out the whole fucking building and nobody has any idea of anything that's going on. I have a weird thing with stealth games. I normally don't really get into the stealth part of it. I try to like actively avoid it. But in this game, I've been loving. I've been loving just the simplicity of the systems. Everything works the way it should. And in Valhalla, if you remember, there were so many like little power up moves that you had, right? So it's like I can put this spell if I hold this button and press triangle. I'll do this diving attack, and if I do this, I'll do the spin attack, and if I do this, I'll do. This has fucking none of that. You have regular attack, you have slow attack, you have parry, and you have dodge. It is exactly like Assassin's Creed 1 and Assassin's Creed 2. It's very, very simplified. But in that, there's a very well fleshed out imagining of Baghdad way back when, and I'm invested in the story. I'm invested in the characters. It's not perfect. I have a few qualms with it. Graphically, I feel like it looks a little dated. I mean, with how good a lot of games are looking now, it looks like a PS4 game. It does. It doesn't look, not to say it looks bad or that it's ugly. It's not. But it doesn't feel like a next gen Assassin's Creed, which is fine. This game had a $40 price tag. I got it as a part of Ubisoft Plus, or whatever they call their subscription service. And yeah, I'm really, really close to rolling credits on it. But I would recommend it for anybody that especially played the old Assassin's Creed games and really liked that sort of setup. I mean, like, so in this game, they go the route of Basim is a pickpocket and a thief, and he, through a change of fate, gets lined up with the hidden ones and becomes in that group. But you're still a pickpocket. Like you can use your little special sense, and you can see the little bags on people's backs. And dude, I'll pickpocket my whole way through town while I'm going to the next mission. I'm not running along rooftops. I'm going through the streets going yoink, yoink, yoink. And then I go hit the shop and sell everything, and I got a ton of money. But no, the game's dope. I really am enjoying it. I think it's probably going to end up mid 8s. Feels like a mid 8 or maybe low 8. I don't know, but we'll see how it ends. But I've been having a lot of fun with it. And then another game that did you want to say something?
I was just going to chime that kind of par for the course with Ubisoft is if it's not a Far Cry game, so
Right.
i.e. it's not Montreal Studio,
Right.
that it looks like ass.
Yeah.
That's kind of their MO. I mean, Skull and Bones, nothing's more hilarious than them calling that a quadruple A game.
You're not wrong. And then one of the things that caught me about 2-3 days ago, so I was probably like 20-25 hours into the game, and it occurred to me that what Basim's voice actor reminds me of, he sounds a little bit like Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. So now I'm driving my wife fucking crazy by adding "for me to poop on" after random things, because he's just like, there's got to be a better way to get into this building. For me to poop on. But now that I've mentioned it, when you go play this game, I think you'll probably notice it too. It's not strong, and it's not always there, but there are occasional vocal deliveries where you're like, that sounds exactly like Triumph the Insult Comic.
I don't know that I ever want to play that game, to be honest with you, man.
I think you'd like it. You love stealth games. The stealth in this game is really good. I think you would enjoy it.
Yeah, it's just, how many fucking times do I have to do Assassin's Creed?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How many times do I have to do it?
No, I feel you, but this isn't an 80-hour slog. This is a very tight, very like, working your way through the investigation path to try to find the main target, and that's the game. That's it. There's not, you're not exploring 87 different towns like in Valhalla or Odyssey or anything like that. It's a very tight little, feels like probably 30 hours maybe.
So if I get the nostalgia bug and I'm like, I want to fire up the original Assassin's Creed, instead,
Yeah,
just fire up this, and
totally.
then you're
Yep.
just playing the original Assassin's Creed a with a cosmetics store, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
There is a cosmetic store.
of course there is.
And that's actually one of the gripes I have with these fucking Ubisoft games, because I support them and I buy their games. So every time I get one of their other games and I log in, they're like, "Oh, you unlocked this item and that item and this item and that item because you bought Far Cry 5 and because you played Valhalla and because you did this." You get all this random shit, and then you get it and you're like, "Oh, it's the best sword in the game. This sword is better than anything else that I can make. If I farmed the entire map and got all the materials to level up this thing to max quality, it still does not touch the blade that I've been handed the moment I fire up the game." It's a little annoying that they break the game like that.
Oh, you once looked at a Soul Reaver title?
It kind of does feel like that. No, it's I mean, dude,
Now you can be Soul Reaver in Assassin's Creed.
I got a flame dagger and a flame sword that when I parry an attack, my blades engulf in flames, and then any hit turns, like, why would I not equip that? If you're gonna give it to me, I'm equipping it. It's happening.
Oh, you played Skull and Bones? Now Basim can transform into an entire fucking pirate ship and roll through Baghdad.
But no, I mean, all Ubisoft jokes aside, if you like Assassin's Creed, and if you played the more recent ones, I would say Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, and just felt like, do they have to be 80 hours? Do they have to be this crazy huge open world? Do they have to take 70 hours to get through? I wish they were just, because like Assassin's Creed 1, 2, and maybe even 3 were like, they're pretty tight. They don't take 80 hours to beat.
Yo, dog, we rebooted the series. What do we do next? Undo! Undo!
Yeah, pretty much. But no, I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would. I will say that. Also a game that I fired up completely out of I can't even explain what made me fire it up. It's been installed on my computer forever. I've had it forever, and I fired up Death Stranding. And this is one of those games that I keep hearing the same thing. Everyone that I've ever heard talk about this game will tell me the same thing, which is, I can't explain why I'm hooked on this game, because it's a game where you do fucking nothing. And so Death Stranding is a game that I'm hooked on, where you do nothing. You're a delivery man and you go from point A to point B. And in that path, you will have things that will scare you and things that'll try to trip you, and you will pick up other things that then become so heavy that your last mile of walking, you're constantly pulling either the right trigger or the left trigger to balance your character so that you don't tip your package over. But for reasons I cannot explain, I'm completely fucking hooked on this game, and I can see myself like taking it to completion. It's very cool. In typical Kojima fashion, I am I'd say probably 15 hours in, and I still have absolutely no fucking idea what is happening. I can't even begin to try to explain, because you watch the trailer for that and go, the fuck is going what is going on here? I'm 15 hours in and I'm still like, I don't know. I don't know. So,
yeah, I actually I installed that game on my PS5 a month ago, because that's been one of the most glaring members of my back catalog that I'm like,
same.
I bought a physical copy of it, and then they just are giving away the PS5 like deluxe edition or whatever as part of PS Plus. I'm like, oh well, I'll just download that. And it just stays on there because I know it's a relatively long game. It's going to take me a while to play.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's such a me game. It's like
I think it is a you game.
Oh yeah, and I love everything Kojima. I'm all about.
Yeah, no, I again, for reasons that I can't explain, I'm enjoying it. If I tried to sit down and go, and then you do this and then you do that, your eyes would glaze over and be like, this sounds like the most boring fucking game in the world. But it's really cool, and I'm super hooked on it. And the one thing that's also really interesting with it is there's a very intentional choice they made to make this game feel extremely lonely. Even when you get to your next destination and you're now at the next town and you're going to connect them into the network and give them the aid that they've been waiting on, the character that takes that delivery is a hologram. Like they're somewhere in the base, they're somewhere there, and you put the shit on a conveyor belt and it goes into the thing and they're like, oh, this looks great. The packages look great. Thanks so much for the delivery. Feel free to use your private room. You never like he's interacted with real people, but 90% of these interactions are holograms. So there's a very lonely vibe to this game. And there's also a lot of really cool quiet moments where the game kind of knows that you're going to be walking for a little bit and they're not going to throw anything at you. And the song title and the artist name will pop up in the corner, and this really great contemplative, like folky fucking emo song will come on that's just awesome and fits the vibe. So it's the game is all about vibes and story and just like the intrigue of what's happening
And poop
and
grenades.
and what?
And poop grenades.
Yes, poop grenades, pee grenades. Yep, absolutely. Yep, all that. But no, the game's dope. I can't explain why it's dope, but it's dope. I also played a little bit of this was on Kim's recommendation. Turnip Boy Robs a Bank. This its game is on Game Pass, and it's ludicrous. Similar control style to like the Hotline Miami sort of thing, where you have left stick for running around, you have right stick for aiming, and yeah, you just keep going back into this bank and trying to get further and further and further. But it's fun. It's on Game Pass. I'm enjoying it. I also picked up the Star Wars Dark Forces Remastered, and I am very happy to report that this is one of those few cases where the remaster was done. If you're doing a remaster, there's in my opinion, there's two ways that you should do it. Number one, you do a full top to bottom rebuild, like Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like you take the spirit and the characters and the story of the first one, and you just fucking rebuild that thing from the ground up. There's that, or there's what they've done most recently with like Dark Forces Remastered. I don't have any personal experience with the Tomb Raider collection, but from what I understand, it works functionally the same. At any point in time, I can pause the game, go into options, go into enhancements, and change it from hardware rendering to software rendering. And if I do that, the game looks and feels and acts exactly the way it did when we were kids. Same exact resolution and all of that.
Glorious tank controls.
Yes, the glorious tank controls. But the game still kind of holds up. It's very labyrinthian. There's a lot of crazy labyrinths. There's a lot of maps that I've gotten kind of stuck on, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. Dark Forces Remastered, surprisingly, with a fresh coat of paint, holds up pretty well. If you're a fan of old school shooters, and especially if you played this game back in the day, I mean, I got it a week after release. I think I had a humble coupon and I scooped it for like $24 or something like that. Like if you dig these kind of games, or especially if you would get nostalgic going back in, it's one of those remasters where they kept the game exactly the way it is. They just gave it a fresh coat of paint. And I like that. I like when they do that. So I'm digging it. Recommend on Dark Forces Remastered. And then that made me nostalgic, and I said, man, I wish they would remaster Heretic, because a few episodes ago I talked about how I wish there was Heretic and Hexen remakes, remasters, whatever. So I did some Googling. What kind of mods are there out there? If you are a fan of the old school Heretic, I want you to grab a pen or type it in your note on your phone or whatever. There's a mod called HD space PBR mod. You can go on YouTube and see what this bitch looks like. This is one of those mods where you download it, you drag it into your game folder, and you open it, and everything works. Lighting, new textures, new everything works perfectly. It is the original Hexen with a super fresh coat of paint. It is one of the better mods I've seen from like the old Doom era of games. They did such a good job with this. So if you are ever feeling nostalgic like I was, you can download the HD PBR mod for free and fire it up, and it's badass. And then lastly, I got the itch for Midnight Suns. I never finished all the DLC, so I did. I had 2 more sessions with that. I'm almost done the Deadpool quest line, and then I think Morbius is next. But now they have Deadpool, Morbius, Venom, and Storm. So I got to get through all of those. So I decided, I spent the money on the DLC. I have the season pass. I when I beat the game, I didn't have that moment of like, thank God I'm done. I never have to do that again. Like I would have played another 20 hours if I could. So now I can play another 20 hours. So I'm firing up Midnight Suns and enjoying the DLC. I'm probably just going to do that in little bite-sized pieces. You probably won't hear me mention it again until I get to the next character or whatever. But I had 2 more sessions with that and had a lot of fun with it. But most of what I did last week was with Death Stranding and Assassin's Creed Mirage. Mirage is probably 90% done, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is installed on the PS5 and ready to go. So the moment Mirage is done, it's going to be Final Fantasy VII for probably a month at least, because I've heard that is a big monster motherfucker of a game.
Yeah, I think my plan upon completing Alan Wake 2 is have a cup of coffee with Pacific Drive. And then I haven't played Final Fantasy VII Remake yet, so I think that's my next stop. Then the Crisis Core game. Then I'll get Rebirth. I think because I never played Crisis Core. There was what system was that trapped on? The PSP?
PSP, yeah.
Yeah, I never had one of those.
I had a PSP, but I never played that game. But no, I guess I should play Crisis Core too. I never touched it.
Yeah,
I have no experience with that game.
The right order is to play that before going into Rebirth, I guess, because of I've heard where Remake leaves off, and it kind of leaves off. I don't want to spoil anything, so nobody worry. But yeah, it's the perfect time to get the refresh on that character heading into Rebirth as you exit Midgar.
Maybe I should watch a video or something before I fire up.
It's not a bad call. I mean, depending on how fresh in your memory the old Final Fantasy VII is.
Not fresh. Not fresh at all.
Because where is it? Niflheim is where all that kind of starts to come together.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool stuff. Obviously, Final Fantasy VII, super fresh on my mind, the OG, because I just played.
You just beat it.
Yeah, which was awesome.
Did you go through the hassle of getting the Knights of the Round summon and all that?
Fuck no. I was like, I just want to refresh.
That's a fucking grind.
I'm like, I just want to refresh on this game. I'm gonna invest 30 hours and just beat the game.
Yeah,
and that's what I did. And I got the refresh I needed. So it's like, yeah, I remember all this shit now. Because it had been what? Like, Christ, 20 plus years, 25 years since I'd really played it.
True story. The first time I ever got drunk in my entire life was on my 21st birthday, and I was playing Final Fantasy VII, and I downed a bottle of wine.
You're like, oh, they don't look like blockheads anymore.
No, I do remember, like, I'd had a couple glasses, like, I don't see what the big deal is. I really don't feel anything. And then I got up and was like, whoa, okay, all right. There it is.
Well, speaking of Final Fantasy VII, which by many is heralded as one of the greatest games of all time, that kind of brings me into our talking topic of the week, now that we've cleared the air with what we've been playing.
Yeah.
This week, I wanted to pose a question, and we'll be hearing from our gaming expert, Johnny Paulus. Johnny, I want to know, what makes a game great? So we often on this show are talking about how we feel about games as we review them and assign scores. But there's just been a lot of stuff that's kind of really good of late. But not a lot of games have fallen into the great category. We've had a few.
Yeah.
Last year, I mean, there's just so many games coming out these days. Last year was kind of a treat where there was quite a few great games.
Yeah.
But not every year is going to be 2023. This year
Mm-hmm.
certainly included in that.
Yeah.
Um, but kind of just to get the bigger picture, what is it that makes a game truly great? Because in my experience, um, there's really not a recipe per se for making a great game. The amount of money you spend on a game is not going to guarantee that it's going to be great. The amount of development time you give to a game doesn't have any bearing on whether a game is or isn't great.
Mm-hmm.
But it is some unknown combination of elements that make games truly great. And you see all over the map small indie titles, big AAA games, um, down the middle AA titles um, that sometimes fall into this category of greatness. But more often than not, you see big AAA games, indie games, AA that don't really quite hit the mark.
Yeah.
And it must not be a simple answer uh, to this question, because if it were, I think every game that we would get would be great. So, Johnny, I want to pose a question to you after that long diatribe.
Mm-hmm.
What is it exactly that you think makes a game great?
Well, I think number one, we have to establish that video games are an art form, just like movies, just like music, and similar to movies and music. Movies can be great for different reasons, right? Clerks is a great movie. It costs nothing. It's in black and white. Some of the acting is terrible. Some of the jokes are a little dated at this point, but the movie is still great, right? And then there are other movies that are, your indie darling movies that are great. But same with music. It could be a great punk rock record that sounds like shit and the guy's out of tune half of the album, but it doesn't matter. There's a certain vibe there. But I think the thing that holds all of these things together, the one trait that they all have, and this is the number one thing on my list, is originality. I think when you play a game and you're going, I have never played anything like this before. There's something about this game. First one that comes to mind in this example is Half-Life. We'd all played first person shooters, but Half-Life was had so many jumps in technology and so many different things that you didn't know could be done in a first person shooter. Same goes for something like BioShock. Same goes for, I mean, we could go with a little tiny budget developed by one person. Stardew Valley is a fucking great video game. But I think what makes them all great is originality. I don't think there's a lot of great games that are just retreading the same shit. Not really much new there. But that's again similar to my examples before with music and movies. That's not always the case. Sometimes there can be a great piece of art that's not original and is totally a wink or a nudge at something else and can still be great. But I think I would say most things originality is probably a big one. What do you think?
Yeah, I think gosh, when I go back and think of the games that I consider great, um they're all over the place. But
Exactly.
for me, one of the most common threads is a great game has the ability, and its atmosphere to pull me in to a different place altogether and really make me feel rooted in it. Obviously, every game has a setting, but
Yeah.
not every setting is on par with like Night City in Cyberpunk or um, with the state of America in The Last of Us, or the different times in Chrono Trigger, or the Dark World in Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Um, for me, that sensor starts to go off in my brain that I'm playing something special when I feel like I've been transported somewhere else and I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
So atmosphere is probably the foundation for me for every game that's truly great. A perfect example of the antithesis of this is when you're transported to a world that you can't wait to fucking leave. Like in Gollum, where you play in prison. And you can't wait to leave, but you never do. You stay your ass in prison,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
And sometimes
terrible.
you get stuck on a checkpoint that's just going to drop you into the void every time you open
There
the
was
game.
the Oblivion cycle that thankfully gave me a way out. So actually,
Yeah.
I'm happy for that. But yeah, I mean, the quickest turnoff for me is in a game is when I'm in a place that sucks, and there's some games that overcome that.
Yeah.
Metro comes to mind.
Yeah.
Like in Metro 2033, I fucking hate that whole environment, but surviving it's kind of the point of the game, so
Mm-hmm.
to speak. But yeah, I mean, when I'm playing, Cyberpunk is like one of the best examples of just perfect atmosphere to me, where like that world is really well thought out, and I don't hear people talk about that one enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, but atmosphere is definitely the foundation. It's not the most important thing um in the bigger picture, but like as a foundation that it's almost critical. BioShock is another perfect example of like in
Absolutely.
Rapture.
Yep. And right from the jump, I mean, Bioshock, from the moment the plane crashes and you find that weird little tower and then you go down, and then from the moment that game starts, it gets its hooks in you hard. What you just said ties with another one of the things on my list, which is Escape. A game that gives you that escape where you look at your watch and go, I could probably play another hour, and then you look at your watch and go, it's been 3 hours. Great games do that. Good games, okay games, mediocre games, bad games do not do that. That's a sign of a great game when you go, I'm going to play for one more hour, and then look down and go, oh shit,
Yeah.
it's been 3 hours. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think Escape is also a big one. And then also tying into what you said, a sense of wonder or exploration. This doesn't necessarily have to be in every great game, but one moment that will probably stick with me in gaming, even all these years later, I will never forget the first week that I fired up World of Warcraft and I made a dwarf, and they went, "Hey, go kill some bunnies." And okay, I'm gonna kill some bunnies. Go into that cave and kill some spiders. Okay. Go do this. Okay. And you're just doing your quest, and you're in your little village. There's like 3 little huts, and then all right, cool. And then you go down the road, and then oh, now there's like a tavern and a pub, and okay, there's like 4 little houses here. This is kind of cool. And you're doing that thing, and you keep questing, and then you turn the corner and you start to climb up the hill, and you see Iron Forge on the top of the mountain. That moment, that holy shit moment of you thought you knew what this game is, it is so much bigger than that. And I think World of Warcraft still holds the crown for that. I mean, the first time you set foot in Ungoro Crater, or the first time I mean, there's so many zones in that game where you cross that threshold and go, whoa, where am I right now? And I think that's a sign of a great game too. When you get to an area and your jaw is on the floor, going, "What did I just get into?"
Yeah, I had a lot of similar, but I was actually going to bring up World of Warcraft for that same reason at some point here. That yeah, it changed how we perceive what's possible, and that's kind of my next point is uh, Metroid also did this, where it sort of changed what you thought could even happen. Because like when that game came out, we were used to Mario Brothers. You run to the right.
Right.
The end. You run right. And Metroid said, "What if you run left?"
Yeah.
And I mean that's a super early example, but yeah, I really like it when a game shatters your expectations. Good TV shows have that same characteristic. Like if you think back to the end of season 1 of Game of Thrones, we won't spoil that, but anyone who's watched that knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Where your expectations were just wholly shattered of what you thought was coming. Your predictability got broken. Last of Us Part 2 had that same energy to it.
Mm-hmm.
For obvious reasons that again we won't spoil. Um, so yeah, breaking a gamer's expectation is hard these days because so many things have been seen. You know, it's kind of why when I'm listening to you talk about Assassin's Creed Mirage, it's like, well, we're just going back to what we've had in the past.
Yeah.
It's like I'll play it if I'm feeling nostalgic,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, this isn't a game where you're slamming the desk going, Mike, you need to stop what you're doing
Right.
and you need
No, and
you need to play this
you're right.
game, you know?
Yep. No, you're right. You know, you bring up Metroid, and I think of another thing that can make games great, and that's replayability. Um, I don't know about you. How many times have I beaten Super Mario Brothers World? I mean, it's probably 50 because that's just one of those games I can at any time be like, oh, I haven't played this in a while, and I will just get completely sucked in and play it all the way through. And the same goes for games like Metroid. The same goes for like the original. I mean, shit, I've gone back and played the original Doom countless times. Same with Bioshock. Same with Half-Life. I think a lot of great games have a replayability because they're so damn good that you go, man, I gotta play. I mean, like, perfect example. We've already brought up Cyberpunk. I've already put, I don't know, 70, 80 hours into Cyberpunk. Now this DLC came out. I know that I could just buy it and play the DLC. That's not what I'm going to do. Mm-mm. No, I'm going to do a new fucking game. New game, new character, new approach. I'm going to play the whole bitch again because the game is that good.
Yeah, I'm
And
right
that's
there
what
with
makes
you.
a game great. You don't replay a game that was okay. You play it and go, yeah, it was all right. It was good. No, you go back to the ones that are great.
I played that shit on a PS4 and loved every second of it.
It's still crazy to me that you played that game on
I
PS4.
wanted to, and I
Yeah.
actually I really don't regret it. It was a good experience.
Um, Another thing a great game can give you is that feeling of accomplishment. There are some games that there's that boss you can't beat, or that puzzle you're stuck on, or that you can't figure out what to do next. And then when you do it, you have that feeling of, I did it, right? Even though I wasn't as big of a fan of Elden Ring as apparently the entire rest of the video game community, I did still understand that Souls-like accomplishment of grinding on that same boss over and over and over again, and then it finally clicks, and you beat the shit out of him, and you have that feeling of accomplishment. Um, the feeling I felt the first time I rolled credits on Hades, when I finally finished Returnal. Um, Not all games give you that sense of accomplishment, but a lot of great games do give you that sense of accomplishment when there's that hill you just can't seem to get over, and then when you finally do, you're like, I did it.
Yeah, the I'm gonna throw an antithesis to all of
Sure.
that and to the works, and that's with oh Lord, brain is blanking at the worst possible time. It was right there on the tip of my tongue. Um, come on, the game that Mickey made us play, or Kim made us play, the
Oh,
Bramble. There it is.
Bramble.
Uh, Bramble is kind of an interesting one to point to because I certainly consider that game to be great.
Agreed.
Um, and kind of brings me into my next point is just execution of a vision um, is really important in games. And I know that's like a very vague book thing to say, execution of vision. But it's what separates, especially when we're in the realm of lower budget games like Bramble, um, from the big boys that come out and fall on their face. Immortals of Avium is, you may be good, but you didn't execute at the right level.
Right.
And special moments in games, uh, things that you won't forget for the rest of your life, um, can often be achieved through music in games.
Well, hold on. Before we jump to music, let me piggyback on the execution of vision, because on my list I also had when you can feel the amount of love that was poured into the game. So the titles I put for that example is games like Psychonauts. Psychonauts 1 and 2, you can just tell how much love and thought was put into every single joke and line of dialogue and character design and everything. Nothing was half-assed. Nothing was like, that's good enough. Like, I mean, you could tell that they grinded it out. And the same with like Sea of Stars, these labor of love games. You said execution of vision. I wanted to tick that one off my list. Music is obviously also on my list, so continue.
Having a solid understanding of how music is going to play into your game, again, it's not everything, but I think that gets overlooked sometimes, just how important quality music is. And I mean quality not just from a composition standpoint, but I also mean it from an engineering standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
to where it sounds good. A lot of games get this wrong. I would actually love to throw Ubisoft under the bus right here, because I feel like that's often one of the areas they strike out so hard on,
Yep.
is music and what music does. Because what music does is it builds emotion, whether
Mm-hmm.
you're cognitively aware of that or not. Um, and it can really change what a scene does, on a base level of understanding, right? If I've got someone running for their life from something bad,
Mm-hmm.
and some like really well thought out dynamic music is playing, uh, you know, like in the movie The Witch, which just has some of the best composition of all time. The,
Agreed.
the music's what makes that great. But if you shot the same scene and you had fucking Nickelback playing, it completely
Never made her just a wise man.
it completely changes everything. So I mean, don't discount how important that is to setting the right tone, the right picture, and how you're going to remember something. Music's critical to it. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the first things anyone who's ever played Halo thinks of is
Oh.
this beautiful Gregorian chant
Mm-hmm.
and the
Yep.
amazing uh, suspended chords,
Mm-hmm.
use of sevenths and ninths in the piano scoring, just these amazing sounds that capture your emotion in a fucking first person shooter where you're some
Yeah.
faceless dude in space armor. I think music is honestly what made Halo so good. Is it just had this phenomenal soundtrack driving it the whole time, that even though it wasn't like the most mind-bending gameplay of all time. I mean, I've recently gone back and played them and it's like, okay, yeah, these were solid first person shooters, especially at their time, but
Yeah.
they weren't anything. They didn't reinvent the wheel there. Where they reinvented the wheel was um, through story and through its music and what it was trying to tell, more so than what you were actually doing.
There's not a lot of great games that have shitty soundtracks. There just
What
isn't.
is a great game with a shitty soundtrack?
I don't know. I mean, hey, put it in the comments if you're watching on the YouTube or you want to tweet at us. If you could think of a game that you thought was great but the soundtrack was shitty, send it to us. We'll see if we agree with you. I in my examples, I had Halo as well. Also a more recent title. Can you imagine firing up Helldivers and not hearing that amazing fucking theme song every time you go down to the planet? That shit pumps me up every time.
I don't
I
think people
can't wait to
realize that
hear that.
there's music playing almost the entire time you're playing that game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I think it's just subconsciously you're just
Mm-hmm.
in the zone too much to notice it, but like
Yep.
there's music going the whole time. I can't leave the music discussion without talking about the GOAT at music design in a video game. And that is
Okay.
the original Red Dead Redemption. Which
That's a great call out.
no one has ever done it better than Rockstar did in the original Red Dead Redemption, where I don't know if you've watched this documentary. I believe you have, about the making of the soundtrack for that game. But for when you're out in the open world, there is a very long, continuous soundtrack that was written, and every instrument is independently recorded on its own stem. And they programmed the game in a way that, based on what you're doing, will introduce and fade in and crossfade stems to build the soundtrack and build the emotion in the moment. So like if you're just walking around and checking out cacti or whatever, you might just hear the mouth harp going brr, 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 or you might just hear a wind instrument playing lightly. But
Right.
then if you spot someone, you might hear the drums kick in, or you might hear
Right.
a little guitar lick play. And it's just the most brilliant thing ever. And anyone, if you haven't watched this documentary on Red Dead Redemption 1 soundtrack, gosh, you have to watch it. It's just truly mind blowing.
Well, the moment you said Red Dead Redemption, my little guy in my head going through the files of memories immediately pulled one out. Another moment that I will never forget in video games was in the first Red Dead Redemption, the first time you go down into Mexico. And everything's different and the music is different. And you had to travel like a decent distance to get there. Like you're kind of just riding on your own and you know where you're headed and you're headed there. And just again, it goes back to that feeling of excitement and wonder and escape, but also that music in that moment. And I that is a video game moment that I will hold forever. I remember just thinking, holy shit, this is one of the greatest fucking video games I've ever played. That was a thought I had in my head as I rode into Mexico and Red Dead Redemption. Is like, this is one of the greatest games I've ever played.
I mean, do you recall in Red Dead Redemption 2, there were moments, I won't talk about the surrounding details of them. There were moments, though, in the game where you just had, it wouldn't let you do anything else other than ride your horse and listen to a song. And there were some specific moments where it's like, this is what's happening right now. You are going to be fully invested in this moment. And yeah, I mean, just masterful execution of what I'm talking about here. The Last of Us series is kind of the final example I want to throw out there. Particularly part 2, I thought he did an even better job with this particular aspect, because music plays such a big role in kind of like this underline to the story of Ellie and Joel. Where, I mean, they even brought in the element of actually being able to play the guitar with the touchpad on the PlayStation controller, which I thought was wildly cool.
Yeah, that was really cool.
But yeah, so wanted to give a shout out to music, soundtrack, design. I mean, we could go on probably an entire episode about great music in games. that
I certainly could.
that big fanfare and Chrono Trigger. Bum, ba, 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 bum, ba, bum. So good.
Or the Final Fantasy VII victory music. Ba, 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 ba. Just, I love that
Well,
shit.
Johnny, give me a final thought, or if you can devise a recipe, a secret sauce, if you will, to making a great game.
I think that you can take any of these examples that we gave, and if you have enough of this one and enough of that one and enough of this one, it can be something great. Um, another small thing I had on my list is memorable sounds. The sound of a Doom door opening, the sound of Mario collecting a coin, the sound of, I mean, even just like the iconic UI beeping sounds in Final Fantasy games. There are so many little memorable sounds. I don't know if that necessarily makes it a great game, but it's something that makes my little brain flutter. But no, I mean, I think similar to my example that I gave with music and movies, um, all of these pieces of art are great for different reasons, right? You can play a great game that is a roguelike with a 10-minute game cycle where you're doing the same thing over and over again, 10 minutes at a time. But if the gameplay is that good, or the vibe is that good, or the story is that good, or it's not like anything you've ever played, and that's why you're still going at it. But there can also be great games that take a fucking 100 hours to beat. And I think that's one of the things that makes video games so awesome is that I can get completely invested in something simple and stupid, and I can get completely invested in a huge sprawling cinematic experience that, like something like Ghost of Tsushima is just like incredible, right? But in the same breath, like I think Cuphead is a great fucking game. I still haven't beat Cuphead. Cuphead is a game I fire up every couple months and try that boss that I'm stuck on a few more times. And I will eventually beat that game because that game is great and I want to beat that game. But no, I mean, I think all art is subjective, and there are going to be some things that everyone thinks that are great that you don't think are great. And I think all of us are attached to different aspects, probably in that list of all the things that we just mentioned. Maybe some of them aren't that important to you, or others are more important. I'm surprised that both of us didn't. There's one more thing on my list that neither of us brought up, and that's story.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you need to have something to say, and this is actually a perfect segue to my final thought.
Mm-hmm.
Is that to me the recipe for making a great game is simple, and it's the piece that doesn't honestly get talked about enough, is that you are not going to make a great game unless you have something to say. uh so many games that come out that just come out and flop. We're trying to make this to make money. We
Yep.
don't have anything interesting to say. I think that's what happened to like Immortals of Avium, that had the AAA backing, the big budget. Is it didn't have something interesting to convey that got people talking about it.
Yeah.
But you look at a game like Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, and it has literally everything we're talking about. It had a
Yep.
lot to say, and it
Yep.
got people talking about it. So ultimately, I think what makes a game great is it having a purpose, and then it executing that purpose flawlessly. You
Yeah.
have to have something to say. You can't just make stuff for the sake of making it and expect people to latch onto it. And what's
Yeah.
unfortunate is that with there being so many games,
Mm-hmm.
that more and more this philosophy of making the game as a service is taking over, because
Mm-hmm.
to make a game as a service is to build a cash register and You don't have to have anything to say.
Yeah.
Do you know what like the biggest game right now is, Johnny? Like the biggest game.
No.
Would you accuse me of completely shitting you if I told you it was Monopoly?
That's the biggest game right now.
So Monopoly Go, I don't know if you're paying attention to this on mobile,
No.
but it is they've spent $500 million in marketing. Let me say it again, $500 million in marketing. And they've been able to because that game's already made $2 billion.
God damn.
Monopoly Go, a fucking Monopoly
Mm.
game.
Mm.
So, it's
Well, I mean,
it's fortunately there's always going to be individuals out there with something to say, but I do think that great games are going to become fewer and further between and harder to find. I think it's going to be a lot like music, where like if you really want to find great music, you're not going to find that on the radio. You haven't found that on the radio for
15, 20
15,
years.
20 years. Yeah, you're just getting this machine made stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I especially feel for people that liked country music. Because holy shit, is
Yeah.
that genre probably the biggest victim next to hip
Yep.
hop,
Yep.
where you're just
Yep.
getting some clown with the reasons.
Just recycled and shoved down your throat. No, I mean, I hate to keep going back to the examples of music and movies, but I mean, you're right. It is the exact same thing, right? Whatever your concept is, whatever your thing you have to say is or is going to be, you have to make it past the elevator pitch, right? And that's the thing is like you take Forspoken, for example, and you go, what if a regular person is transported to this other magic world and they now have these unlocked powers unlike anyone else in this whole world has seen except for this final, this one tyrant that's running this whole world. And you go, oh, that's great, yeah, you should run with that. And then you come back 5 years later and go, we're done our game, what's it about? Well, there's this girl that gets magically transported to this world, and she's got powers, and yeah, here's the trailer. You know what I mean? And it's the exact same thing with music. It's like, oh, but this band is like if Muse and the Foo Fighters had a baby. I'm like, but I don't want to hear the Muse and Foo Fighters have a baby. I want to hear a new band that does something different. And it's the same thing with movies. It's like, oh, but Godzilla X Kong, remember that Godzilla movie we made 10 years ago that was good? It's time for the 7th sequel to it. And like, I okay.
Sharknado 2 and beyond.
How many Sharknadoes
There's
have
like
they
8.
made? I mean, there's clearly an audience for this thing
It's my
somewhere.
wife.
So, oh my god, I couldn't sit through one of those movies. But no, I mean, I think art is, I think you hit the nail on the head. You have to have a clear vision of what it's going to be, and then you got to pull that off. And you have to make it past the elevator pitch. It can't just be, well, it's this plus this, and then with a little dash of that. And that's what it is. That's what we're running with. Like, no, you need a real story. You need a hook. There has to be something that's going to make it different. There has to be something that makes the world engrossing. The music has to be good. All of those things apply.
And to end this conversation, Johnny, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
You've probably already shared this many times previously, so I don't feel bad doing this. But to close out this segment, what is the greatest game of all time? Just one.
Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
Solid answer. It hits all the points.
It does.
For me,
and it hits all the points like headshots nonstop the whole game.
Yeah. For me, I still have to go with The Last of Us. That
Last of Us is up there.
Just that properly scratched everything I needed scratched.
Mm-hmm. Witcher 3 is up there.
Yeah.
BioShock is up there.
A lot of games up there. A lot of games, Johnny Ballas. A lot of games up there. Greatest in the world.
Some say. No. We're not going to go into dual Donald Trump impressions.
All right, let's get out of here. Let's jump into One Up. Johnny, I'm going to pitch it to you. What is your One Up this week?
My One Up is we got some pretty cool Sea of Stars news this week. Sea of Stars, my second favorite game that I played all of last year. I gave it a 9.8. I called it a, quote, timeless masterpiece. Mike, you still need to play this game. Sea of Stars has moved 5 million copies, which for a SNES style turn-based RPG from an independent developer, that's pretty fucking incredible. And then on top of that news, they announced that they are going to add a 3-player co-op mode to this game. So even in combat, when it is your character's turn, you choose what spell you're going to do. You have to do the timed executions. If you're the one getting hit, you have to time your block. Dude, I want to play this whole fucking game in 3-player co-op. It sounds like a blast. But I think it's really, really, really cool that man, Sea of Stars continues to I'm just gonna rave about this game until the entire fucking world has played it, because it's that good. It's on Game Pass. Stop not playing it. Just fire it up and play it.
My One Up this week is a sad one, but hopefully I'm not the one breaking this news to you. If I am, I apologize. But one of the most important figures in my lifetime passed away this past week, and that's Akira Toriyama, who obviously is best known for creating the Dragon Ball series, but he's also the most relevant person I can point to in capturing my imagination in video games. His style, you just see it and you know it's him immediately. And I mean, his work on Chrono Trigger, his work in the Dragon Quest series, just a huge loss. Because the other thing with Toriyama is he wasn't slowing down. We're actually going to get a game. It's called Sandman, and I guess that's going to be it. That's the last thing we're going to see that he was really invested in come out. So, good time to go revisit your Budokai games on the PS2. Good time to take a look at those beautiful cutscenes and art on Chrono Trigger. Good time to appreciate Dragon Quest. And yeah, it's sad that we lost Toriyama, who is almost inarguably one of the, if not the most impressionist or impressionable animators of our entire lifetime up until this point. So very cool that we're going to get kind of this swan song, and hopefully it's good. But rest in peace, Akira Toriyama. Big loss. Indeed. That's the show for this week. We of course plan. God, we've had a lot of hiccups lately, haven't we? 3 in like the past 2 months. So we plan to be back next week with another great episode of the Power Gamer podcast for you to enjoy. We're gonna stick to that plan. I'm gonna have beaten Alan Wake 2 and able to stick a fork in that finally.
Hopefully I'll have rap credits on Mirage as well.
Until that time, I'm Mike Dawson.
And I'm Johnny Paulus.
Tune in next time. Take care.
Catch you on the flip flop.